All right, good morning, everybody. How's everyone doing? All right, trying to get everything going here after that keynote. Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Rucker. I'm the co-founder and chief operating officer of OmniVirt. OmniVirt is a virtual and augmented reality advertising platform for brands and publishers. So what I'd like to do today with you guys is kind of share some case studies and lessons learned from the advertising industry. Monetization is obviously a critical topic of conversation at lots of different VR and AR events. So a little bit of a step back before we jump into what we're doing at OmniVirt. A little history lesson. I think the reason that we're excited about this space is we've seen with the evolution of every major computing platform the ability for media publishers and brands to figure out how to reach consumers with new formats and new stories. So everything that you just heard from Qualcomm is nothing new, right? Whether you're going and buying a magazine to read an article and seeing print ads, listening to the radio and listening to audio ads, watching YouTube and watching video ads, it only makes sense that with these new VR and AR platforms, there will be VR and AR advertising experiences to monetize that. But before we talk about what's going on in that space, I want to kind of share a little bit about my experience and some learnings from working at YouTube. So prior to starting the company, I actually spent 7 years at Google, specifically focused on YouTube monetization. And I'm seeing a very similar trend emerge in the space. So try and rewind 10 years ago when you weren't streaming 4K video on your 4G network, but rather watching little 4x3 pillow boxed, grainy dogs skateboarding and cats playing the piano. This will never monetize. Try and take yourself back in history. And in the early days of YouTube, we launched something called a YouTube brand channel. Brands would literally spend $500,000 to own youtube.com/Pepsi. Now, this channel looked great, but the dirty little secret is nobody went there. That's not how people navigated the site. And from that experience, we very quickly realized we needed to launch a new platform that brought the ads to where people were on the platform and do it in a way that didn't require a dedicated, custom-built experience, but rather, by the way, is it possible to get the time going? I just want to make sure I can see how much time I have left. Rather than having a destination experience like the brand channel, launch a platform like TrueView. And you're probably familiar with this, not as TrueView, but as the Skip Now button. Thank you very much for the Skip Now button, right? And that was really what unlocked and opened up the experience. First off, brands could serve their advertising experiences where customers were. They could measure how many impressions were being delivered and how long people were watching versus just having a cool thing that they could show their boss, right? And I think what we're seeing emerge in the VR and AR space is very similar in the early days to what we saw on YouTube, which is the bespoke walled garden experience, right? A standalone Volvo app, a standalone Porsche app, a standalone app from Warner Brothers for their new film Rampage, where you can launch gorillas onto mountains and buildings and have them smash things. Looks amazing, great to demo. I think we all have enough apps on our phones. Trying to convince somebody to download another app is not really what ultimately in the long run is going to work for a marketer and it's going to help a publisher monetize. And so our goal at OmniVirt is really to take the PR out of VR, right? Not make it a stunt or a thing for a marketer to like show their boss, but make this just like they buy banner ads, just like they buy video ads, deliver an experience that enables any marketer to distribute their VR and AR experience where people are today, and as you just heard from Qualcomm, where people will be in the future, in their headsets and in their smart glasses, and enable publishers that, for obviously some content experiences, you're going to want to sell that experience. You're going to have a paid-for or subscription model. But as we know, a lot of media is free to consume. How is that going to be monetized? It's going to be monetized through advertising experiences. And that's what OmniVirt's doing in this space. So what I'd like to do is just show a quick video, no sound. I'm going to kind of talk through a little bit of what we're doing. And then we're going to transition to 3 case studies and some lessons learned. Sound good? Is this interesting so far? Yes. Awesome. All right. So our business started with the New York Times. If you've seen a 360 video on the New York Times, that's OmniVirt's technology. Serving 360 videos into the New York Times homepage. We're working with Cathay Pacific to deliver right in the banner ad, one tap. You're now in an interactive 360 experience. No headset needed, no download of an app required. We've then taken those experiences from desktop and mobile and transform them into ad experiences inside of headset. This is a publisher, a game of ours, between level 1 and level 2 of a game. Now instead of downloading the Warner Brothers app, you could actually be in Dunkirk VR. Or instead of 360, imagine 3D experiences from e-commerce companies. Rather than having an image ad, why not have a fully three-dimensional version of that product? And why not be able to tap into that experience and go through a virtual shopping experience right there on your mobile phone? Or lastly, augmented reality. We're probably familiar with the fun Snapchat lenses. Why not power that experience in a mobile browser, right on the New York Times or Condé Nast, a campaign we did for Pitch Perfect 3? Or one tap and boom, see what that experience looks like on your dining room table from Outback. We want to do this in a way that's completely self-service. Any customer can come to OmniVirt, upload their format, whether it's a 360 video or a 3D object, select the file format, press publish, preview the experience, so that whether you're a real estate agent in Kentucky or a car manufacturer in Spain, you can get up and running easily. Drag and drop hotspots to build an interactive experience. The impression and click tracking, everything that an agency needs to get their campaign up and running and measured. One push, the campaign's live, and an analytics dashboard to see how many impressions, how much engagement, where in the experience are people actually spending their time. So once again, this doesn't become just a stunt, but something that can be measured and then figure out the return on your ad spend. And for publishers, super easy. Whether you're on iOS, Android, building experience in Unity, or web-based JavaScript, easy to get started. That was the spiel, really quick, all right? Minute and a half there. All right, so I want to talk you through, from everything you just saw, 3 different case studies about how we're helping traditional web publishers monetize with VR, AR. I'll talk to you about it with the New York Times. I'm going to talk through an advertiser like Cathay Pacific, how they're using these immersive formats to deliver on their brand goals. And lastly, talk about how a VR developer can begin to think about launching free games and making money. So the New York Times, let's see if I press, is that going to go? Cool. So the main thing, the New York Times, folks might be familiar with the New York Times VR app and their partnership with Google to roll out Google Cardboard. Everyone got super excited, but like I mentioned, not very many people downloaded the New York Times VR app. Or if they did, it was a really cool experience, but people weren't in the habit of consuming the New York Times VR app daily. So the way that we partnered with the New York Times was to enable them to leverage their existing ad inventory, their existing video ads, their existing display ads, and now serve immersive formats through their existing ad tech stack. So this enabled a publisher like the New York Times to launch campaigns with Infinity, Ford, Google, Samsung. That wasn't a one-and-done stunt that lived in the VR app that looked really cool, but rather allowed them to sell a premium ad format at scale, the same that they're selling and operating their business today. And we've launched over 30 campaigns with the New York Times. They've generated millions of dollars in ad revenue as a result of being able to serve these immersive formats. So this is a great learning, the fact that brands are excited about doing VR and AR, and they're looking for distribution outlets. And publishers like the New York Times have audiences, and with a platform like OmniVirt, are now able to deliver these immersive formats where the audiences are today. Second, I want to take you through a case study of this emerging category of publisher known as VR app developers. This is a great company out of Sweden called Hat Rabbit and their game Merry Snowballs. You could see here between the game, if you wanted to get a bigger snowball, how you could, very similar to TrueView, now have a pre-roll, a mid-roll, or a post-roll ad experience that if you want, you could skip and go back into the game. So maybe you're playing too much VR and you need a better night's sleep. Well, don't worry, it's brought to you by Sleep Number. And then after you're done with the watching the ad, you could be going into the game. So a very lightweight way for a publisher to not, I just bought my Oculus Go, I'm loving it. The fact that I need to pay for almost every single game, and then when I pay for the game and it's not that good of a game, I get very frustrated. Being able to offer free-to-play experiences that can monetize is what we're seeing many publishers having success with in the mobile VR space. And lastly, I briefly talked about Cathay Pacific. This was an example where this airline was launching new flights and new routes, and they wanted to reach customers who'd never traveled on Cathay Pacific before. Well, how are you going to do that? By simply just showing a generic banner ad with a photo of a plane with a price point that looks like every other ad that you see on the web? Or give people the ability right there from the ad to take virtual tours of the first class lounge, virtual tours of the airline itself. And the great thing, because we were distributing these experiences through the way that they're buying their ads today, they were able to measure these interactive 360 experiences just as they measure their ads today. And what we saw in the campaign was a 25% uplift in brand favorability, a 12% uplift in preference for the airline, and 20% uplift in unaided awareness. This is actually the most successful digital campaign that Cathay Pacific has run to date. And I don't think it's surprising, right? These brands are already buying advertising. They can now deliver it with a more immersive, more engaging format for the exact same media cost. So those were a few case studies, and with the 4 minutes I have, I want to run through some quick lessons and then open up for some questions. So some learnings from building a business in the advertising and monetization space in VR AR. I think lesson number one is simplicity, right? There's going to be a lot of cool things that you're going to see demoed on the floor today, or people are going to keynote. People have a way of running their business. They have a way of operating their business. I think it's critical for you to fit into your customers' buying and selling process. Requiring them to go into a brand new platform or integrate a whole new SDK or whatever that might be when it's just an emerging category is going to be a friction point that's going to make it difficult for them to do business with you. How do you roll out your product both to the buyer, the brand, and to the seller, the publisher, in a way that fits into their existing operation and is simple to execute? Second, I think this is really important, performance. It's very easy when you have a shiny new object to come into the customer and say, hey, you should be doing this thing. And you might, in some scenarios, especially in the advertising category, get a small little innovation test budget. But if you want to tap into the large media budgets, the large big spends, you need to demonstrate that this works better than what they're doing today. If you can show them that this 360 banner ad has a 5 times click-through rate relative to the standard banner ad they're running, it's a no-brainer for them to shift that $1 million line item from that category into this category. And lastly, this is somewhat counterintuitive, but I'm going to say anyway, with that simplicity and with fitting into their business model, I think you still need to bring innovation. Marketers love being first to market. Agencies love bringing innovation to their client. And so if you can bring them that innovation in a way that scales, you're going to have success. So I only had 20 minutes. I wanted to leave some time for questions. I've got 3 minutes here. Here's my email address if folks have any follow-up questions that you're not able to get to today. And I really appreciate you guys taking the time. Hopefully this was valuable. And I'll take some questions or go to Slido. Any questions?
Any questions from the audience? Go.
Over on the right side? Or?
Got right here. Oh. Well, I'll get back to you. Yeah.
You showed some pre-roll or pop-up related ads within a VR game or VR app. Do you have any plans to do things like product placement or non-intrusive ads as we see on web?
Yeah, so we have experimented. We've also run campaigns in 2 different ways in that. One is through product placement, so virtual objects within an experience. The second is virtual billboards. Going back to the simplicity piece, I think the key thing is understanding what assets do the clients have, right? Warner Brothers has a VR video. Sleep Number has a 2D video. Does the client have a virtual mattress? Fine, maybe they're willing to create it, but they're going to need to create it if there's enough scale. Today, there's not really enough scale in VR headsets for a brand to justify investing in building a whole new creative. So our go-to-market has been, you're already creating 360 videos for Facebook. You're already creating it for YouTube. Why not run it on the New York Times or across this network of virtual reality apps? So absolutely, we're going to experiment with different formats. So yes.
Hello. My name is Kaveh. We actually work with OmniVirt in the Google Cardboard section. So now...
Sorry, say the first, work at OmniVirt what?
We actually use your app for the Google Cardboard. So, but my question is about other platforms, specifically for Oculus or other platforms that some of them, they don't allow advertising yet, or it has been the case for past, I believe, few years. I don't know if anything changed there or how you are going to get the permission of those platforms to integrate your solution and basically bring advertising to the platforms that are more walled garden right now.
Yeah, so I'd say if you take a look at the major VR platforms and who owns them, it's primarily Google and Facebook, Samsung, right? Those large companies entire business model is predicated on advertising. So I think it's early days in the market, and so they're trying to build an ecosystem. Once there's enough scale in that ecosystem, like I showed at the beginning, it's inevitable that there will be advertising. The reason that we focused on cardboard at first is ultimately you're going to need scale, right? Advertising is a pretty simple math equation. How many impressions can you deliver? What cost per impression can I get at that impression? And so in something like an HTC Vive or a larger more high-end headset, there's not enough scale for advertising to really fit that model, which is why we focused on the mobile VR platforms today. I think I've got 8 seconds, and there's limited time, or 10 seconds, it just went up. Wow, thank you for the extra time.
Yeah, go ahead.
Does your ad tech have any geographic limitations? No, it does not. Do you have Matterport integration? We actually can build interactive 360 experiences in our own platform, but if you want, you can integrate in a Matterport walking tour within ours through an iframe as well. I'm just getting time added. This is awesome. I guess I'm that engaging. Okay. Have you experimented with engaging consumers with AI-based engaging interactions? So I think this is a really great question, and when you kind of think about what is the future of VR and AR advertising, yeah, it's kind of excited that something could dynamically change based on how you're interacting with it. But I want to come back to like what that promise and that vision is versus how can you build a business today, trying to fit into what assets does the customer have, what can be delivered today at scale, trying to build something that's going to be completely dynamic and only work in one platform or one environment, I think will be a very cool demo, but it's very difficult to scale in my opinion. So from an advertiser at the end of the day cares about distribution and scale, so we've not focused on that today. And with that in mind, I think I just ran out of time. Thank you so much for your time. Michael at OmniVirt. All right, bye-bye.